Изминативе денови на Бит Филм Фестивал во Охрид имаше една ексклузивна звезда која што денес е гостини во студио 1. Станува збор за актерката Джесика Стојадиновиќ, Стоја. First of all, first of all, thank you for accepting the invitation to come to Studio 1.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, so the reason you were at the festival was because there was a movie in which you star. It's called Ederlezi Rising.
Yes.
It's a Serbian movie.
Yes.
But you come from a background, from the pornographic industry, becoming an actress in a real movie. Before we talk about
real movie.
Well, that's when you call it like a serious movie. More like serious movie.
I come from a porn career where, for some reason, even though everybody who watches it says they just fast forward through that part, the company that I worked for most of my career takes the narrative plot line very seriously. And Ederlezi Rising, the set was great, and they really took time to do rehearsals and all that sort of thing. But since that, I've done other movies where actually we have better production value in porn. So I take issue.
Okay, yeah, but you get my point. When I say like a serious movie, I think about movies that are children from 12 or 8 years plus can watch it.
No children should be watching Ederlezi Rising.
All right.
Yeah.
How do you end up in the movie? And what the movie is about?
So the movie was shot in Serbia. It's a Serbian scriptwriter, a Serbian director, Serbian director of photography. And they reached out to a Serb in New York who happened to know me and were like, hey, do you want to do this science fiction movie? And I was like, yeah, sure. Even if it's terrible, it'll still be an adventure. And then it turned out to be wonderful.
First of this kind movie you're doing?
My first real role in a narrative film. I had done cameos, like little walk-on bits.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And what's your role in this movie? Because we still haven't seen it. It just premiered in Belgrade and then here in the festival.
Yeah, I'm a robot who's been sent on a mission with a human astronaut who has a lot of problems with women and with people in general. So they send an artificial intelligence with him, and then his ego causes all sorts of things to happen.
And what would you say it's harder, the emotional experience in this kind of movies or adult movies? I'm talking in terms of transition of the character. Have you taken classes for this one?
I've taken improv classes. I come from a ballet background before pornography, and in pornography there actually is quite a bit of narrative on the high production value end of things. So it just isn't that simple. It can be very hard to go from a very dark, dramatic plot into a sex scene. So in certain ways, shooting Ederlezi Rising was easier because we had the sex scenes on one day, and then we had the very heavy emotional parts on different days. So you're not going directly from one to the other, because that can be very or in adult, sometimes it's like, wow, we did a really good job with the narrative and now I'm having problems wanting to have sex with this person. Whereas on the Ederlezi Rising, there's more separation. It was more difficult it was just more of a challenge to work with.
Your personal challenge, or?
Well, to work with a wider range of human emotion. Yeah. Pornography works with this much, and then like maybe a little bit here, maybe a little bit there. And in Utter Lazy Rising, I had to do the whole.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking the whole transition. Is it hard to do it before?
Well, but you're
'Cause
not.
You relatively don't have much experience in, as I say, serious movies. You won't agree with the word serious, but just to
Serious
make
is-
you know, just to separate the two industries on.
Serious is fine. It's the real thing, because pornography is more real than science fiction movie.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
There's no stunts in porn. You have to really do it. Anyway, working with a wider range of human emotion, but at the same time, it's spread out over a lot more days. So in the morning, you have a romantic scene and you get into that space and it's cute and flirtatious, and then you break for lunch and then you come back and you have to deal with some really horrifying aspect of humanity, and then you go home and you take a bath and you come back to set and do whatever's next the next morning.
So what's easier then, if I ask you? This
Fashion.
fashion? I guess fashion is, yeah. Do you see yourself as an upcoming actress, like in Hollywood, let's say, or you won't stop? This is like just a short-term project, and you won't quit what you were doing for now.
I've done, since Utter Lazy Rising was shot, because that was in 2015, so a number of years ago, I've done another narrative feature, and I've done 2 theatrical plays, one in Brooklyn and one in Manhattan. As interesting roles come along, I'm quite happy to do more acting. It turns out I enjoy it. But when I compare the last feature film that I did with the last porn film that I did for another company that isn't mine, the roles are actually better in porn. At least for women. Like, I spend so much time reading scripts only to find out that the plot twist is the woman is a bad cartoon of a sex worker, or a two-dimensional idea of someone's girlfriend, and that's not very fun to play.
So when you see the script, you imagine one thing, but then on the set, it's another thing.
No, when you read the script. So the booking process for...
You don't imagine what's written there and how you imagine it, then it's not the same in the set.
No. The booking process for serious films is, hey, we want you to read our script. And I'm like, is it a sex worker? Because I play a sex worker all the time at my day job. And they're like, no. And then you read the script, and 2/3 of the way in, there's a big twist. She's a sex worker. And it's like, this is just boring to me. And you just don't see... The difference between porn and features is, in porn, women are the stars. In Hollywood and TV, it's still, unless it's a movie that's for women, a lot of the roles for women are just to serve the male character's plot, like to move his story along, which is just not as interesting to play.
Since we're talking a lot about, we're making comparisons with the thing you're doing as a profession and this movie, how did you end up in the porn industry? You're born in USA, but I imagine you didn't grow up wanting to be a porn actress.
Wow.
How did you end up?
End up is an interesting choice of words.
How did you become?
Right, that's better. Someone asked me if I wanted to do nude photos, and I said yes. And then someone asked me if I wanted to have sex with this beautiful woman, and I said yes. And then someone asked how I felt about boys. And I was like, boys, that's alarming. And they were like, oh, we mean male performers. And I was like, okay, that seems also interesting. And I will continue to do it as long as it's interesting.
So, doing that, does it affect your personal life? In terms of people having prejudice about who Stoja is?
Yeah, we're seeing it right now in this interview. How did you end up in porn? What was it like doing a real movie?
So you're feeling like I'm judging you? Because if I was, I wouldn't have invited you to be here.
Your phrasing is dismissive in a way that's similar to the way that the general press in the United States treated pornographers 10 years ago. And I'm assuming English is not your first language.
It's not.
So
It's not.
I'm trying to be reasonable here.
That's why I'm saying you should explain it if you want to.
Yeah. The thing that people expect is that I would have trouble dating or have trouble being in a community. That's not the trouble. The trouble is, in order to keep up the workload, I'm constantly changing time zones. I'm always trying to cram this interview into this period of time when actually I ought to be sleeping or whatever. Like, those are the challenges. And it's not as exciting as a story about male jealousy precluding a relationship, but the reality is that the challenges are really boring. It's mountains of paperwork. It's mountains of paperwork. It's how am I going to make time to take this press opportunity and also sleep enough, and oh, this person needs this thing right now because they forgot to get a release when I was on set, like the thing you have to sign. But I'm on an airplane and now my email is full of angry messages, and like that's the challenge of my life.
Yeah, I mean, the stigmas, the prejudices are real. We may agree on or not on the words used, but what I'm asking is, do you feel maybe sometimes pressure that people may not understand you for real, just because you're working in an environment that not everybody feels it's a like decent job? I wouldn't say, but some would say that that's the prejudice.
What would you say?
I don't have anything to think about it. I mean, I'm a human. I think it's something that you decided to do, and that's it.
Exactly. Someone asked,
Yeah.
it sounded like fun.
Excuse me, I didn't understand you.
Someone asked and it sounded like fun.
And do you feel like it, pressure or not?
I feel pressure when I interact with journalists who ask questions that are not their own questions, that they think other people want to hear. And in my experience, like before the Beach Film Festival, there was a festival in Vojvodina, which is a region north of Belgrade in Serbia, where the village priest was very happy to escort some young women into the area that they were keeping us to take pictures with me. And then he looked me in the eye and shook my hand. The place that I stay when I'm in Belgrade is owned by a woman who, when I met her, said, "Oh my God, your hair is wet. It's winter. You remind me so much of my daughters." And I was like, oh, And then she asked what I did for a living. And I told her pornography. And she said, "But you remind me so," oh. You remind me of my daughters. Like, that's my experience. The pressure is something that you don't need to be bringing into this. If your opinion is not judgmental, you don't need to bring me judgmental questions. The reality is that human to human, most people are very accepting and very willing to rethink whatever is in their heads about a person's background or identity.
I wish you a lot of movies, though. I wish you a lot more movies.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for being guest here.
Thank you.
Одиме со една кратка пауза и се враќаме со останатите предвидени содржини.